Bridget A. from Drunk Dog Creative, and I want to introduce you to the beautiful Bokeh suite from Stampin' Up, and I'm going to show you how to use the stamp and die bundle, the papers, and the embellishments to make these beautiful butterfly shaker cards. You can see that that's just an adorable card for a child's birthday or for someone who loves butterflies. Butterflies to me are very special. I don't know how many people know this, but when the butterfly comes out of the cocoon, it has to struggle to get out of the cocoon, and it's that struggle that strengthens their wings and allows them to fly. If you help them out of the cocoon without them struggling, they're too weak to live and they can't fly and they die. So for me, the butterfly is a beautiful symbol of strength through adversity, of using things that have happened in life and turning them for good and beauty. And that's one of the reasons I love butterflies so much. So I'm going to show you how to make this card. These are the elements of the suite. There is the stamp and die bundle, and I, of course, always put a magnetic sheet and keep my dies with my stamps. And yep, I've used these a lot, so I need to go and wash them. They haven't been washed in between uses, so they're not sticking. That's my fault. So this is the stamp set photopolymer with coordinating dies. This die does something really special that I'll show you about at the end. So stamp and die set. These amazing little embellishments, these itty bitty Bokeh mix that I'm using in the shaker card. There's a hybrid embossing folder. So this folder will emboss, but it also works with these dies. So you can emboss and cut out some of the bits in here, including, some of the smaller butterflies. So the embossing folder is a hybrid because it also works with the dies to do some beautiful embossing. And then there's this amazing suite of 6x6" double-sided Bokeh papers. I'm hoping you can see this in all sorts of beautiful colors. And of course, they tell you what colors it coordinates with: Balmy Blue, Berry Burst, Calypso Coral, Daffodil Delight, and Fresh Freesia. Now, you don't have to buy the suite. Everything comes separately as well. But the suite, I think this is one of the ones that's worth it if you like butterflies. So let's talk about how to make the card. Let's go to our cut plan. The first thing we have is our cardstock, which is 210 millimeters wide by 148 millimeters tall, and it's scored at 105 millimeters and folded. Then I've got a scrap piece of what's left over to do some die cutting with, which we'll talk about later. And then I've got the card front, which is one of those beautiful Bokeh papers. This is 143 millimeters wide by 100 millimeters tall, and it's going to do double duty for both the butterfly and the card front. You'll see why in a minute. I've also got a piece of acetate that I have cut to be just slightly smaller than this. So I actually cut this at 141 by 98. It doesn't matter. You can cut it the same size if you think you can line it up well. But otherwise, if it's a millimeter or two smaller, it helps. And then I've got my inside writing panel, which is also 143 by 100. And then when I cut my 6x6 piece down, I kept a little piece of it that was 143 wide by 25 tall to go on the inside, just to add a bit of extra interest to the inside writing panel. It can go either side. That's optional. And then your inside writing panel, I think I said it already, is 143 by 100. So let me put those pieces aside because we've got a bit of work to do before we get to the assembly. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to want to cut out the butterfly shape. And I want to be careful when I do this, that wherever I place it, there has to be enough room for me to put the foam tape strips, that's these, around it without them showing outside this. And I'll show you an example of where I didn't do that. I started to make this card, and if you can see this clearly, the foam tape is too far outside the cut there, and it shows, and that's what you don't want to have happen. Now, there's two ways of doing this. On the earlier one, I stamped the image and then cut it out. So I could use, it's got one of the embellishments on it. I could use this stamp to stamp my image and then cut it out with the die. Always stamp first, die cut second, so that you can line this up appropriately. But I want to try something else. I want to try die cutting the black out of actual black cardstock and gluing it. So what I'm going to do is get the body and the wings on my spare piece of black, but I'm going to put this on and find my piece of mint tape that I had. I'm going to line this up so that it's a little bit at an angle, but I know there is enough room. And if I use a piece of the tape from one that I've already used, I need to know that there's enough room for it to not show outside, knowing that when I curve it, it'll be a little different. So I'm going to just line up my butterfly there, put some mint tape over it to hold it in place, put my butterfly wing detail and body on the black. I'm going to take this over to my die cutting machine, and I'll be right back. All right, I'm back with my pieces now. I've cut out the body and the overlay, which I'll get out of there in a second. This is where I use my take my pick for everything. This is my absolute all-time favorite ever tool of any brand, not just Stampin' Up. There. I'll dig those out of there later. I'm just going to poke out the last of these. I use this tool for absolutely everything. Every day, all day. I'll show you in a second. I mean, this is one of the reasons why, for getting it out of dies and for getting all this stuff off. Just get this all out of the way. This is a fabulous tool. It has the pick. It has a blade for other things, which really needs a good clean because I've overused it. I've pulled it out of its cap. It's got the putty for dealing with embellishments. It's got a double-sided stylus that you can swap, and there's other optional extra tools you can also buy to go with it. Use it all the time. All right, now that I've got my little pieces for the actual butterfly, I'm gonna now take this piece off. I'm gonna just very carefully peel my mint tape off. Now what I've got is something that will do double duty. I have a card front, and fitting neatly into it is the butterfly. And you can actually make this card either sided, like whatever color combination you like. I'm gonna go with this one. So I'm gonna put this aside for a minute, and I'm gonna grab my silicone sheet, which also needs a good clean, and put some glue on here. On here. And I'm gonna glue the wing overlay onto that butterfly. And I'm just gonna use the fine tip, and I'm gonna go kind of around the edges. And make sure I at least dot the edges, and a couple dots here and there. You don't want too much because you don't want much of it to get on the front, but just a little bit all the way around. And then I'm going to take my butterfly, and I'm going to put this, center this on it. Just press down so I've got the wings. And then I'm going to take the body and do the same, put a little bit of glue, especially on the tips of those little antlers, which are so tiny. And right down the body. Ooh, okay, good, don't drop it. Very, very little. And I'm going to line up the antlers first to make it a little easier, and then just straighten out the body. So instead of stamping and die cutting the image, I'm just doing it a little fancier by putting the black cardstock over it. Now this glue is very, very tacky, and if I start working with embellishments, they're going to stick to my hands. So I'm just gonna take some isopropyl alcohol, which really dries my skin out, and a Chuck's wipe, and I'm gonna just get all that tackiness off before I go to the next step. And I'm gonna let that glue dry before I put any embellishments on it, because the embellishments will stick to the glue, and we don't want that to happen right now. All right, this has had some time to dry now. So I'm gonna grab my card front and my card base, decide which side. I'm gonna line my card front up where I want it. There's a tiny bit of mint tape there. And I'm gonna take my butterfly and I'm gonna put some glue, leave that for a sec, on the back of it. Don't overdo it, but enough for it to, stick to the card fairly well. So I squeeze out a little, and then I use the rubber squeegee to just move it all around. You only need to squeeze a tiny amount out. Just spread it around. Pick that up. Now, I'm going to align my card front so that it's even and where I want it, but I'm not putting it down yet. I'm going to hold that in place with one hand, and I'm going to inlay the butterfly exactly into that card front so that it's inlaid. And then I'm going to take the card front off and again get some of this tackiness off my fingers. All right, now that that's on there, as that's drying, I'm going to create an outline, a barrier to keep the embellishments within the shaker card so they don't spill out. And to do that, I'm using these strips of foam tape from Stampin' Up. These are brilliant because you can bend them around corners. I know, it's so cool. So I'm just gonna start on the side, and I'm gonna have it close to the butterfly, but not right up against it, just a tiny gap. So the shakers have somewhere to go, and so that it doesn't show through the acetate. Now, you can bend this around the corners. So just do it a little bit at a time. Hope you can see this. Very carefully. Now, the top tape may come off. That's all right. It's better if it doesn't. But if it lifts up, just leave it alone. But don't take it all off if you can avoid it. And I'll show you why in a minute. And we're just going to make that all the way around. There, grab another strip. When you join two strips together, you really want them to butt right up against each other so that there isn't a gap for embellishments. So I kind of push against it a little before I put it down. You don't want the embellishments escaping. I know my hands are probably hiding how I'm doing this, but I'm just working all the way around, very close to the butterfly, but with a little bit of a gap, and not so close to the edges that it'll show. When I get to the beginning, I'm gonna lay it over the other piece and snip it right on the barrier so that I can push that together too, just like I did the other one. And then I'm going to take a couple of pieces and just provide some support for the card front so that it's not just up here and then nothing supports it on the edges. This does not have to be precise. You just have to be able to support the card a little bit. Around the edges. The other thing I'm going to do is, if there's a join I'm not 100% sure is really sealed, I'm going to take a very small piece and butt it right up against where the join is, just to give an added, oh, I should have just kept running that piece. Give it just an added barrier. It's just an extra precaution on my part, because sometimes I send these cards to my grandkids in America, and they can come loose on the flight over. in the airmail. And then they open an envelope full of embellishments instead of the card being full of embellishments. I've done that with glitter too. Friends aren't happy about that when that happens. Anyways, I've done that, and that's ready to go. I'm not lifting the tape off yet. I want to do something to the front of this that is a little bit of an extra. You don't have to do this. It's just an extra. Now, I've decided which sentiment from this set I'm going to use. I'm going to do this as a sympathy thing. In case you need me, I'm here, and that would best fit there. If I'm doing something like happy birthday, that can go up there, so I'd have this space to play with. So decide your sentiment before you do this step, if you're going to do this step. I'm going to put my sentiment here, so I'm going to keep that a little bit clear, but I'm going to take this little bubble stamp and just add a tiny bit of interest in the same ink as the main color, which it's actually Berry Burst, and I've grabbed the wrong ink pad. Give me one sec. All right, so I'm going to take my Berry Burst stamp pad, which is the main color in this, and I'm just going to add a couple of these bubbles randomly, and I don't have to always re-ink. I can just off-stamp a little bit, just to add a tiny bit of extra visual interest. Again, totally, wait, I'm going to do one more thing. Totally random, totally optional, totally up to you. And if you want to take any others, like this little butterfly, might be fun to just stamp up in the corner coming in. Just little things like that can sometimes add visual interest, but you also have to be careful not to overdo it. Ooh, you also don't want a piece of embellishment staying in your stamp pad. Okay, so I'm going to close that. So you want to do that, if you're going to do it, you want to do it before you put this on the card. You don't want to do it after it's already on the foam. So now that that's ready, my next step is to take my piece of acetate and attach it. So again, I'm going to take my glue and I'm going to just glue around the butterfly. I'm going to make sure I get some onto those little prongs there, because otherwise they don't stick down well. And then kind of around the outside. And glue is better for this than tape, trust me, than glue tape. Use glue. Now, when I put the acetone down, if you do the normal thing of putting it down and then adjusting it, you run the risk of the glue getting into the part of the acetate you don't want it on. So you really want to line this up carefully, which is why I've made it slightly smaller than the front piece, and just don't smudge it. Just put it down. Here's the more difficult step. I'm going to open the card out because I don't want the double layer or for it to wobble in any way. I'm going to take my itty bitty Bokeh mix, which are my embellishments. These are adorable. There's all different little iridescent type colors and dots. And I'm just going to take a pinch and put them in the middle. Now, if your hands are tacky from the glue, they're going to stick to your hands, which is not always fun. What you absolutely don't want to happen, you do not want any of these little embellishments getting on top of this tape. And you can see that there's one there that's about two there. You want them off that tape, because if they get on top, you won't get a seal, and then they can all spill out. So I just take a couple of pinches. You don't want to overdo this part, because if you put too many in, they don't shake well. So I just do, 2 or 3 pinches, just enough to have a little bit in there. That's probably 3 pinches. So I'll just put a couple little more. Don't overfill it. And try to do it without tacky hands. Just double check that none are touching the tape. And then very carefully hold the card down while you carefully pull the tape off so you don't jerk the card and have some of those embellishments go flying. That one's already off. You yeah, like that. You do not want that to happen. So just carefully peel the tapes off while kind of holding the card steady. Yep, that just flew straight to there, and you don't want it there, so I'll get it out of the way. This is the tricky part. You got to be really careful here. Then you're going to put your card front on. But again, you have to be extremely careful because the moment it hits this tape, it's stuck. And if you move it, you mess everything up and start all over. So you very carefully line it up kind of how you had it to begin with on the outside edges, and making sure that, you know, it's even all the way around. And then you just press it down onto that tape. That needs the tiniest bit of glue. This is very risky. Just going to put the tiniest drop there. Just hold that for a sec. Oh, that was risky. I can clean that up afterwards. Okay, so then my card front is on, and I've got a shaker card to shake. Now, all that's left to do is put your sentiment and your inside on. So here's one I prepared earlier, again on that piece of black scrap paper. Then I'm just going to place on here. And I'm going to use my other favorite product, if I can get my, take your pick, is these dimensionals. They're kind of hexagon shaped, so they fit a lot of spaces. They come in this size, and they come in a mini size, and they come in black. And I think they're fabulous. I use them all the time. The bits are easy to peel off. They're easy to get. So I'm going to just place this little sentiment right here on the card, which I've punched out with one of the Stampin' Up! Punches. I just think that's lovely. And I embossed it with Versamark and silver, Stampin' Up! Silver embossing powder. And so now it's time to do the inside. I've got my white inside panel, and I've just got to decide. I'm adding the strip for interest. This is optional extra. I've got to decide whether I want it on that side. Probably easier if I'm actually looking on there, or if I want it, well, I think that's a little more striking. So I am going to, you can use glue tape for this, but since I've got the glue out, I'll just use glue. I'm going to glue this to that writing panel. So I'm going to line it right up with the bottom edge so that it's very even. There we go. And that just, it gives you less room to write, but it's a pretty big writing panel. So it just gives that little bit of extra interest. Again, the glue, I don't like that tacky feeling, so I tend to wipe it off right away. Now, if you want to add even more to this, you can do to this what you did to the front of the card, and that is overstamp with the same color, the Berry Burst. And I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to take those and just do a few of these little off stamps like that. And I'm going to take this little butterfly again because I just think it's so cute. Ink it up, and I'm going to angle it so that it's mostly on there. If it goes over, it's okay. You could even leave the front alone and do your sentiment on the inside. So you've got a range of sentiments here. Maybe it's a birthday. You could do your time to celebrate along that strip. All sorts of things you can do. Anyways, that's what I've chosen to do. And then I'm going to tape that to the inside. And I am using this because, again, I have run out of my Stampin' Up! Stamp and Seal. And my new order is due in a few days, but I didn't want to wait to do this video. So I'm going to line that up very carefully. And that's my inside done. my outside done, unless you want to take it even a step further. So the other thing you could do is add bits of this to the outside, just a few. And what I would do is put just a couple of them in the lid. And I would grab my fine tip glue pen. I'll give you a hint for how to get that needle back in at the end. And what I would do is I'd put a couple of dots around just randomly. I usually do things in threes. And then, oh, do I have my fine tip tweezers here anywhere? Yes, okay. I'd grab some fine tip tweezers or something and just pick a couple of these random embellishments and put them on those glue dots. There, just a few scattered around, and whatever you don't use, tip back in, and always keep your lid on these embellishments. So that just gives a little bit more interest, ties the whole card together, and you've got that. Now let me give you a tip. To get that needle back in, take the excess glue off the tip, line the tip of the glue bottle against your index finger, and then use your finger to guide that needle straight in, and then close it. That's your hot tip for today. But there is your shaker card in the, they're stuck. That's your shaker card in the beautiful bokeh. And you can see you don't have to use black. I used the blue with the bluey kind of inside. I did another one in the beautiful purple. But yep, there you go. There's your shaker cards for different occasions, using the beautiful butterflies bundle and elements of the beautiful bokeh set. Okay, I told you that I would show you something that has to do with this die at the end. And it's not a completed card, but I want to show you what it does. It makes a butterfly card. So you put your paper in this way, you put the die, let me grab it, wherever you want the fold to be, and you cut, and then you turn it around, and you line the die up with that edge as well, and you cut, and then you just pull the other paper away and fold it, and then you've got an actual butterfly card. The whole card is a butterfly, and there's all sorts of things you can do to the front. You can stamp this onto it, which will be it's not a complete fit, but then you can take the die cuts that we used to make the other card, you then layer it over it with the body. So you layer the butterflies, or you can, use the different stamps and stamp around it, or use the embossing folder. There's all sorts of things you can do, but that particular die makes an actual butterfly card. And the edge is embossed, which is really neat. I just think that's cool. And I can't wait to make some stuff with that. So stay tuned for that. All right, now I mean it. Happy inking. Have a great day, and thanks for watching.